Hello and welcome to Fleet Tech That Works, a video series produced in partnership between Automotive Fleet and GPS Insight. I'm Lance Holt, and today we're going to be looking at how to build better fleet safety. Our editor, Chris Brown, sat down with Tanner Ambs of True MHS, along with Tyler Mortensen of GPS Insight, to better understand how Tanner and his team did just this using the video telematics solution from GPS Insight. They're going to look at the ways in which True MHS exonerates their drivers during accidents, how they use positive data to influence driver behavior, as well as how to dispel the notion of Big Brother when implementing a solution. Let's dive into the conversation.
So Tanner, let's talk video telematics specifically, okay? As a company that, probably has telematics, and is looking to go one step further with video telematics, you'd think that regular telematics can kind of do all the safety benefits, deliver all those safety benefits that you thought. And what I'm trying to understand is, how does video telematics really kind of take that to the next level? Can you just kind of get into that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. We were getting, the telematics from what we had in our cars previously, but we were looking into video specifically due to our at-fault accidents. In 2019, we had 30 at-fault accidents. And so we were looking at ways that we could look into reducing that, altering behavior to be more on the safe side. And the metrics that we were getting didn't give us the whole picture. We found looking into video, we get more of a fuller picture of what's going on surrounding an incident. So let's say something like a harsh brake pops up. I'm able to look at the video and see, hey, what are the mitigating circumstances around this? Is it my driver was being an idiot, or is it somebody else was? And I can tell that watching a video. I can't tell that if it just says, hey, there was a harsh brake at this moment. I don't know what the circumstances were around that. And so we were looking to reduce the accidents, and by being able to see driving behaviors that we couldn't see outside of harsh braking, harsh acceleration, and speeding, we were able to focus in more on behaviors that were actually really, really dangerous. Things like distracted driving, like we're talking about, that was a huge benefit, and that cut our at-fault accidents significantly. I think it's something like 83%. We were down to 5 at-fault accidents last year. So that's a significant portion that I can safely assume that was due to distracted driving prior to us having the videos and the video capability installed.
Wow, that is pretty persuasive. Tyler, why don't you give us some high-level thoughts on how video telematics can kind of take it to the next level in terms of safety?
Sure. I think what Tanner said was right on the point. He nailed it. Telematics has been around for a long time, and primarily for most fleets created visibility that they never had before. They could see where their vehicles had been, they could see where their vehicles were in real time, and they started to get data around things like speeding, hard braking, hard left, hard right, and even had scoring or scorecards that would help them identify or understand drivers that might be operating unsafely. But what telematics didn't provide is context, and that's kind of what Tanner's referring to, right? So what actually happened, and why was there a hard braking event? Was my guy doing something unsafe, like distracted, using his phone, text messaging, or maybe looking at paperwork for his next job? Or was he paying attention, doing everything right, and slammed on the brakes because something happened that he couldn't prevent or stop, but had to react to? So what we're seeing in the space is that companies want context. They want complete visibility. There's a lot of things that we could get into today around cameras and some of the challenges, some of the concerns fleets have. But ultimately, context is what's going to allow you to truly manage safety and have conversations with your drivers that will lead to the improvements that most fleets are looking for.
One question in regards to scaling, folks may have in their head dash cam technology from a while back, which is reviewing tape, and that's time consuming, and that's really not where the market is today. I'll start with you, Tanner. How do you manage that? I mean, really, there's no way you can look over the shoulder of 130 drivers, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And managing the fleet is not the only part of my job. I do a myriad of other things. So this is something I actually hit on in training, and whenever we were rolling out cameras, we hit on this. Because primarily I was the only one for the longest time that was reviewing these videos. We now have 3 other people that are helping me out on that. But with over 100 cars, I would tell people I have neither the time nor the interest to watch what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. The really great thing with the cameras that we're using is that the only time that I get video is whenever we have something that a driver performs outside of our safety parameters. So if they are practicing unsafe driving habits, that's the only time that I see a video. And it's a minute clip that gives that context. And I can go for more if I want to and request that. But I get most of the context from that minute clip that I get. And I'm able to see what was going on. Was there something that, kind of precipitated this? Is there some sort of mitigating factor I need to take into account? But with that, it's so much more manageable. Even with over 100 cars, I was able to, as long as I stayed on top of it on a day-to-day basis, I was able to kind of monitor everything that needed to be monitored to keep our drivers safe.
Wow, great. Tyler, maybe you can just go a little bit more into the specifics of the system and how it recognizes incidences and collates them.
Sure. In regards to scale, this is a super important, topic, right? You have to start with understanding the data that a camera can provide. And there's a lot of different cameras out there, but typically you're going to see what you refer to as sort of legacy cameras or event-driven cameras that are typically going to turn on or record data after a hard braking event or a hard left, hard right, speeding event. And then you would get into what is more commonly referred to as a smart camera, things that can actually use computer vision or recognize events outside of a hard braking event. So when you're looking at cameras and you're looking at scaling, the first thing to start with is what data can the camera provide? And one of the things that we're really pushing right now is cameras that can focus on positive data, that you're not just looking at negative events or things that show drivers what they're not doing well, but are there solutions out there, and can you look at a safety program and incorporate positive data? That's one of the focuses that we have. From there, if you can understand the data that you have access to with a camera and you can score driver behavior, what you learn or eventually get to is, okay, now how do we fix the driver behavior, or how do we improve those unsafe events that are happening within our fleet? And really, this is the most important part, right? This is where scale becomes important. How do you coach drivers? How do you show them what's happening? And how do you do that in a way that is efficient for an organization with lots of fleet or vehicles and lots of drivers? So what we really focus on are a couple things, but you have to get into coaching. What options does the platform provide from a coaching standpoint? Can you sit down and record or document a coaching session? Can you provide the information directly to the driver and coach them directly so that they're empowered and they understand safety? And then with the right cameras and ones who are really at the edge of technology, you can actually provide in-cab alerts for lots of things like distracted driving, or when drivers do things that might be borderline questionable that you need to review, like running through a yellow or a red light, based on the circumstances, those may require coaching conversations. So gone are the days of watching every video. That's not what cameras are today. Today, cameras are smart cameras. They're using AI, they're using computer vision, they're using edge processing to really analyze what's happening in real time and help fleets understand what they need to improve.
Great. I want to ask you about that, Tanner, too, but I understand that you've got a pretty interesting story about a driver that was cut off and rear-ended.
Yeah, I know that our insurance companies have loved the fact that we use dash cams, because I'm able to provide them videos surrounding accidents and help them with their investigation. I know adjusters who have gotten to know on a first name basis based on all of our accidents are very, very pleased with it. We had a driver who was driving down the highway. She comes in and tells me, "Hey, driver cut me off. I didn't have time to react, and he just slammed on his brakes, and I rear-ended him." And my first thought was, "Oh no, this is our fault. You rear-ended. Okay, this is going to hit our insurance. This is, not going to look good on us." But I reviewed the footage, and it didn't change my thoughts any, but I sent it off to the adjuster that was investigating. And he came back to me and said, "No, we're going after this other person's insurance. This is absolutely not at fault. They were unsafe. They didn't check. They didn't have enough room to come merge in. And then they just slammed on their brakes. We're not accepting liability for this." So it was a huge benefit for us. It didn't ding us on the insurance, and the insurance was able to provide that to whoever they were going after and say, "Hey, this is actually what happened. This is not hearsay or somebody's story. This is the real footage." And that was hugely beneficial to us.
Yeah, I mean, you add up the hard and soft costs there, and the ROI is palpable, frankly. I mean, that's a really good story. To follow Tanner, what Tyler was saying, it seems like that how you manage the drivers in relation to the video telematics system is really how you make a safer fleet. It's not just the video telematics, the existence of it. How do you manage your drivers in that respect with the clips that you have access to and your ability and ways that you coach them?
Yeah, we've been able to integrate into our training the most common things that we see as far as unsafe driving practices. And they're things that I think a lot of us, even if we don't want to admit it, do in our personal cars, like following too closely, or, maybe just checking a text message real quick. It doesn't take your eyes off the road that long. So it really brought to light the things that were unsafe that I think everybody probably does at least occasionally in their personal vehicles. And so we were able to integrate that into our training model. And I'm able to, whenever I'm training our newest hires, to say, "Hey, here are the 3 areas that I see the most problems with." And it's following distance, stop signs, and distracted driving. And I tell them, these are the things, in your personal car, you get comfortable, you roll through a stop sign, you get comfortable, you're following pretty closely because you can react in time. Really, you can't. But we've been able to integrate that into new hire training, but also into things like coaching. Whenever I bring somebody in after they've had a significant, incident, something like being on the phone while they're driving, initially I can just, show them, "Hey, I saw this," and we can have a conversation and talk about ways to mitigate that risk. And it's able most of the time to just be corrected with a simple conversation rather than heading into some sort of disciplinary process. And the fact that I can pull it up for my employee and say, "Hey, this is what happened," and they can see themselves doing the unsafe behavior, I think that that's hugely beneficial, that they're able to recognize. And it's not just, somebody in an office saying, "Hey, you were driving badly. I need you to fix that." They can see for themselves and really identify that that is negative behavior and improve on that. And it's kind of a self-improvement sort of thing, not necessarily coming directly from me, but now that they're able to recognize that, they go, "Oh, that's something I need to be aware of."
I wanted, Tanner, if I could ask, how did you deal with the Big Brother issues at your company? I mean, were drivers initially skeptical of video, or how did you manage that one?
It was like a 50-50 split. Some of them were okay with it and some of them were not. And it really came back to the fact that we're not just looking in on what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. I don't care what Taylor Swift song you're singing to and just rocking out, fist pumping in the car. I don't care. If you do it safe, I won't see it, So that was something that really kind of calmed down a lot of fears. And I see that in my new hire trainings too, because I go over that with them as well, because some of them are skeptical about the cameras. And the fact that they know that, as long as I drive safely and try to drive safely, and I'm doing my very best, this is not going to be a huge invasion of privacy. This is just going to show areas maybe that I can improve. If I do a big goof up, then, I'll have a conversation with Tanner and it'll be over with. So that kind of calmed a lot of fears, that I'm not looking in. I don't have the time. I'm not that interested in what you're doing inside the cars. As long as it's safe, I don't care.
Tyler, I'll just kind of reset the question a little bit to give some context for our viewers. How would you set them up for, what are some of the key points setting them up for video telematics success?
That's a good question. I think you have to take a step back and look at the major challenges you think you might have. And regardless, if you're not using video, realize that you may have some challenges that you're not aware of because you don't have information or context around whatever data you have that shows that you may have either a high number of accidents or, unsafe driving through telematics. What I would caution or recommend, companies do or government fleets do when they're looking at cameras is not to assume that the cameras that they're familiar with are the cameras that are available today. That camera projects are not about just watching video, and they're not about recording drivers to see what they're doing. Cameras are incredibly smart, and they provide context and visibility into safety in a way that no other technology can today. And ultimately, for every organization, the safety of your driver and the people that are on the road with your drivers is something that has to be addressed. And there are really, really great uses of technology that can simplify that and make it easy for organizations to try and solve safety and protect, their drivers and other drivers that are on the road. So those would be my takeaways. And then just go through a process to talk to all the different vendors out there and look at what types of data is available. I think it's incredibly important to factor in positive driving behavior. Is that something a camera can capture? I always use the Walter Payton analogy. I'll end with that. If you only based his performance off of fumbles, he would not be in the discussion for top running backs in NFL history. But when you look at positive data and you look at everything that he did, it's hard to argue that he's not in the top 5, if not the top running back. But same goes for your drivers, right? Don't think about negative events as the only thing you can coach to. There's cameras and there's opportunities to focus on what they do well and drive positively focused safety programs.
Terrific. That's a great comprehensive wrap up there. Well, Tanner, Tyler, thank you. And in deference to, Safety Month here, we'll wrap it up right now, but I really appreciate both of your guys' viewpoint on this call. And thanks very much.